tried to discreetly throw my undercooked steak out of an open window at my wife's boss's dinner, and it went horribly wrong. So, last night, my wife's boss invited us over for dinner. This was a big deal. My wife had just started working at this company, and from the way she'd been hyping it up, you'd think she was meeting royalty. On the drive over, she drilled it into my head that I needed to be on my best behavior. No dumb jokes, no weird habits, no being myself too much. I scoffed at her paranoia and reassured her that I was always charming and that everyone loves me. She didn't look convinced, but I ignored that. I mean, come on. I've been making good first impressions since birth. Her boss, a single woman in her 50s, greeted us warmly at her third-story apartment. She was pleasant, professional, and clearly held some sway over my wife's career. We chit-chatted over drinks, she laughed at my well-timed jokes, and my wife seemed to relax, as if she finally believed I wasn't going to embarrass her. And then dinner happened. She brought out the main course, a big, juicy steak for each of us. The smell alone made my mouth water. I was ready for this. I had prepped my stomach for what I expected to be a perfectly cooked piece of meat. But as soon as I cut it into mine, I realized something was very wrong. The inside was barely warm, a shade of red that made rare look well done. This thing wasn't just rare, it was borderline breathing. I half expected it to moo at me in protest. Now, I can handle a rare steak. I prefer medium, but I can handle rare. But this was a veterinary emergency. This was so raw it was actively working on a comeback tour. Panic set in. What was I supposed to do? My wife's steak, I noticed, was a nice, actual medium rare. She was enjoying hers just fine. Why was I given the premium cut straight from the Jurassic Park lab? I couldn't just not eat it. I'd already expressed excitement when she brought out the steaks. I'd already committed. Claim veganism, too late. Fake a sudden food allergy, suspicious. I sat there, heart pounding, staring at my plate while the women continued to talk, oblivious to my dilemma. Then my eyes landed on something. The open window. A light bulb went off. My only chance at salvation. The boss stood up and excused herself to grab dessert from the kitchen. I had seconds to act. Without thinking, I grabbed the steak with my hand, gave it a little shake to get rid of the excess juice as if that made a difference, and launched it towards the window. It was a beautiful throw, perfect form. The arc was chef's kiss. But I had made one critical error. The window wasn't open. What was open was my jaw as I watched my beautiful, raw hunk of beef smack against the cleanest glass I have ever seen. The sound was something between a wet slap and a desperate cry for help. It slowly slid down, leaving a trail of bloody steak juice behind it like some kind of gruesome crime scene. Time stopped. I turned my head ever so slowly to see my wife, mid-bite, frozen in place, staring at me in pure, unfiltered horror. Her expression morphed from shock to rage in a way that made my stomach twist. And then came the boss. She had definitely heard the steak's attempt to escape and returned with an expression of pure confusion. She looked from the steak resting on her pristine windowsill, to the bloody trail it left behind, to my empty plate, and finally to my very guilty face. Silence. My brain went into overdrive. I had to say something. I'm so sorry. I'm such a klutz. I don't even know what happened. I was cutting and it just slipped. Just ask my wife. I really am a CLUTZ ... right honey. No help coming from that direction. I will clean this up ... I can't believe this. I am so sorry etc. etc. My wife remained silent, her eyes drilling into my soul. The boss just blinked, slowly, processing. I tried to salvage it. I grabbed my napkin and began smearing the bloody steak juice across the window, which somehow made things infinitely worse. Oh, no. Let me just oh wow, that's really in there, I muttered, panicking, as I made it look like someone had been murdered against the glass. At that moment, I knew. There was no way out of this. My only option was penance. I turned back to my seat, picked up the steak, and began to eat it, cold, chewy, raw. Each bite was a personal failure. I deserved this. I had flown too close to the sun and was now suffering the consequences. I chewed that horrible, bloody steak in silence while my wife and her boss watched in stunned disbelief. The rest of the evening was awkward, to say the least. My wife didn't say a word. The boss made some small talk, probably trying to process what the hell had just happened. As soon as we got to the car, my wife remained silent, her knuckles white against the steering wheel. I knew I had messed up. Bad. We drove home in complete silence. When we got inside, she turned to me, took a deep breath, and said 2 words, "I'm fine." And that was it. I knew I was not fine. I knew she was not fine. I had ruined an evening that was supposed to be about making a good impression, and instead, I was now the guy who assaulted a window with a stake. The next morning, my wife left for work still not talking to me. I braced myself for the worst. But then, a miracle, I got a text. "Good news, boss name, and I just had a good laugh over how much of a fucking idiot you are. I hope you know you will never live this down. Love you, you moron." So, in the end, I survived. Barely, but I will never escape this story. So, silver lining, I still have a wife, probably.